Let's just say that Abraham wasn't going to be adding this to his Instagram and Facebook accounts. His son Isaac is on the top of an altar, tied down, ready to be killed and burned. Oh, did I mention this already? Yeah, Abraham put him there. Can you imagine the emotions that are running through both of them? Surely Abraham is overcome with deep despair and wondering, what am I doing? Surely Isaac is overcome with deep despair, confusion, and fear. Why is my father doing this? Let's rewind the story. Years have gone by since the birth of Isaac. Abraham and Sarah are enjoying their promise every day and watching him grow up. So much hope runs through their veins as they look upon their son, the one in whom will be the beginning to the great nation God promised would come from them. Life was good, but then God spoke to Abraham, saying, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on the one of the mountains of which I shall tell you." Genesis 22:2. Say what? Can you imagine hearing this from God? As we have already seen, Isaac is the promised son. How would Abraham and Sarah's legacy continue? How would the great nation God promised through them be fulfilled if Isaac were dead? We don't know if these were the questions running through Abraham's mind, because all Scripture tells us is that he simply got up the next morning and headed to Moriah with his son. It took them 3 days of travel to get to Moriah. So much time to talk with his son, so much time to think about what God had told him to do. Those 3 days had to be agonizing. The thought makes my stomach turn. I can't imagine what Abraham was going through. We don't know if he tried talking God out of it, or if he simply went along with it. Either way, each step closer to Moriah would have been harder and harder to take. When they arrived at their destination, the scene shifts to Abraham's entourage being left to wait as Abraham and Isaac walk away. As they are walking with everything they need except a lamb for the sacrifice, Isaac asks his father, "Where is the lamb that they will be sacrificing?" Isaac has no idea that he himself is the lamb that will be sacrificed. Abraham responds, "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." Genesis 22:6. Trusting his father, Isaac kept walking. Eventually, they got to the place where the altar was to be built. Abraham completes the portable altar and then turns to his son. Somehow, he convinces Isaac to cooperate and lay down on the altar. Abraham proceeds to bind him to the altar. He then reaches for the knife he brought to perform the sacrifice, and all of a sudden, the voice of an angel from heaven calls out. He said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram, caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. Genesis 22:12-14. By this time, you and I are both thinking the same thing. How in the world could Abraham go through with this? Not to mention the obvious. Why in the world would God tell Abraham to do this? Maybe Abraham had a level of trust in God that goes far beyond his situation here on earth. Maybe he understood that Isaac would be taken care of, even if he were killed as a sacrifice to the Lord. I get how ludicrous this sounds, I do, but at the same time, we can't downplay the seriousness of the role God was giving both Abraham and Isaac in the grand story of God's redeeming of all humanity. It seems that God wanted to stretch Abraham's faith because of the sheer magnitude of how much he would be used by God to usher into the world the ultimate sacrifice, God's own Son.